Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. This is Eisenherz with a third part of my mini-series on how I prepare for my first CDH tournament. Last time I explained how I get quality input to improve my piloting, so if you want to watch that video you can find a link to it in the description box down below. Today I want to share how I track my games in order to maximize my progress, so without further ado, let's get started. The idea behind tracking games is not necessarily to assess how good a certain card is, because that's basically impossible in CDH as a 100 card singleton format with a lot of variance, but the goal is to maximize my progress whenever I'm playing. I aim to get solid data on the following aspects. Obviously, the first thing I want to know is my overall win rate and how it changes over time. That's pretty easy to assess. You just track all your games and all your wins and losses, and then you just calculate your win rate. Pretty easy. If you do this over a longer period of time, you might not necessarily see your progress, because your early games, which might have more losses, will lower the percentage of your win rate overall. So in my opinion, it's a good idea to break it down into blocks of 20 games or 50 games or so. So you can see in the last 20 games I had a win rate of, let's say, 20%, but in the 20 games I had before that, I had a win rate of maybe 15%. And if you see your win rate growing over time, that means that overall you're just getting better as a pilot. So for example, right now my win rate with Blue Farm is about 30%, but to be honest, I haven't been able to play that much because of real life stuff. So my win rate might just be lower than it would be if I had the chance to play more games and be more comfortable with the deck overall. I also had a few more wins in the earlier stages of playing Blue Farm because my opponents knew that I wasn't so experienced with the deck and they didn't focus me that much, but as they see that I'm getting better as a pilot, they're obviously also focusing me more and thereby not allowing me to win as easily as in the early stages. I hope that my win rate will still increase up until the tournament. I'd be really happy if I had 35%, but that's going to be tough because it's not that much time left and I also don't have that much time to play every day because I have a busy real life. Alright, so the second thing I want to track are my opening hands, because mulligans can make or break a game. I specifically write down how many cards I kept, which cards I kept and which cards I put on the bottom. The idea behind that is to maybe assess later on what were the games I won and what kind of characteristics do the opening hands have, just for me to see which hand is probably more likely to lead me to a win. Common examples would be, is it okay to keep a turn 1 fish on the play if you only have one land, because your opponents could just let you starve, and then if you don't draw into another land, you just basically had a mediocre hand and kept it because of fish. You just kind of need to feel out if that works usually or doesn't work, and yeah, that's the stuff I keep track of. Overall, I just want to know immediately after a game if a starting hand was pretty good or pretty bad. Even if I lost the game, if the hand carried me through the game well enough, I will still keep it as a good hand, right? But if I notice that I took a risky hand or a debatable hand and it proved to be not a good mulligan decision, and that happens more often, then I know that a hand like that might not be a keep. So the third thing I keep track of are the turns that I usually win a game or lose a game. Right now I usually lose games around turn 4.4 on average, which tells me that I need to be way more careful around turn 3, turn 4, because that's usually when my opponents will present a win. And if I don't have interaction at that point, I'm basically allowing my opponents to win more easily. So I will be more conservative around turn 3, turn 4. Also, what's pretty interesting to me is that my average winning turn is turn 5.3, which tells me that I usually win a game later than other people win games. So I most likely am more successful when I try to be the second person to go off, wait for the first win attempt to fail, and then use the next turn to present my win attempt. And that's also what I try to do now in games, so I try to play it more conservatively around turn 3 and 4, build up resources and interaction, and then go for the win on turn 5, maybe turn 6. So to be really honest, I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but to me it kind of does, and that's what I try to do. And yeah, it's working pretty well. My win rate isn't absurdly high, which is to be expected, right? I'm a noob with a deck, but it's still around 30%. I strive to get it at 30 to 35, 40. But yeah, attempting to play the deck like that, be more conservative in the mid game, and then try to go off in the mid to late game has been proven to be much more efficient. And that's also how I used to play, or how I play Urza when I play it. So it works for me. Finally, I keep track of noteworthy plays that impacted the game to a large degree. For example, if I had a turn 1 fish or a turn 1 Ristic or a turn 2 Ristic with a turn 1 tutor, but also if my opponents had a turn 1 wheel. Other stuff would be like an opponent forcing a win attempt but feeding another player a ton of cards which allowed them to win. Also stuff that's like out of my control, because that can happen, right? And then player B just gives the game to player C or whatever, and then I just need to keep track of that, because it shows me that in that situation, although I have a loss, it might not been because I like totally misplayed. But what I also do is I keep track of my misplays or of interesting lines I didn't think of and my opponents later explain to me, so that way I can memorize them better and try to implement them when the situation arises. So let me give you an example on that. Very recently I screwed up this win attempt. So I was on the play, I had LED and Wishclaw Talisman in play, and I cast Thassa's Oracle plus Tainted Pact, leaving exactly one card in my deck, just in case player 2, who was on Kenrith, can somehow make enough mana to let me draw a card. What then happened is that the Tamashii player bounced my Thassa's Oracle in response to its trigger using an Ether Spellbomb that was on the field, leaving my devotion at 0 and stopping the trigger from winning me the game because I had 0 devotion and 1 card in my deck. In that situation, I was so frustrated because I missed the open Spellbomb, being so preoccupied with my own sequencing. I just accepted the misplay because I couldn't think straight anymore. I didn't see my options and I just passed my turn. Instead, what I could have done is either activate the Wishclaw to tutor up the last card in my deck, but I didn't do that because in my mind Wishclaw Talisman works in sorcery speed, but in fact Wishclaw Talisman only says that you can use it on your turn, so an instant speed on your turn is possible. Yada yada, I missed it. Another thing I could have done is I could have just cracked the LED in response to the Ether Spellbomb, make 3 blue mana, let the Oracle be bounced back into my hand, and then just recast it from my hand to win the game. Well, I didn't think of it, but I guess it's better to have these kinds of things happen during the prep rather than the tournament. And by writing them down, I can memorize them and maximize my progress with every game session. And that's it for the third part of my tournament prep mini-series. Do you have any ideas on how I could make my game tracking more efficient? If so, please let me know. I personally think that it's important to keep it simple, to not be overwhelmed by information and data, but I'm really interested in hearing from you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like, share the video with your friends, leave a comment down below, and of course don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more content in the future. This is Eisenherz and auf Wiedersehen.